Don't wait until you lose everything to react. God is warning you. But before revealing this message, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. Continuing. Pause for a moment and listen. Yes, you. This is not a casual encounter. This is a divine appointment, a moment marked before your birth. The Creator of the universe is speaking directly to your heart at this exact moment. Have you felt that restlessness? That inexplicable discomfort, as if something is about to happen? It's not coincidence. These are the signs you've been ignoring. The small warnings, the recurring dreams, that inner voice whispering that you need to be prepared. Today, that voice no longer whispers, it cries out. This is the moment. God is speaking to you. Light always breaks through the densest darkness with a single ray. And this ray is shining now upon you, illuminating a path that has always been there, but your eyes, distracted by worldly concerns, couldn't see. It's as if a veil is being lifted, revealing a truth that will shake the foundations of your existence. How many times have you asked for a sign? How many times have you cried out in the silence of your room, begging for direction? How many sleepless nights have you spent questioning your choices, your decisions, the direction your life has taken? This moment is the answer to all those seemingly unanswered prayers. This instant is the culmination of years of silent preparation. Look at nature around you. It doesn't cry out for recognition. It simply exists in its divine perfection. The sun doesn't ask permission to rise every morning. Flowers don't announce they're going to bloom. Seasons change without asking for permission. Similarly, this divine call isn't asking for your approval. It's simply declaring a truth that transcends your current understanding. You were chosen to receive this message because your spirit is ready. You've reached a crucial point in your journey where a decision needs to be made, a decision that will determine not only your future, but the legacy you'll leave in this world. Perhaps you're thinking, why me? What's so special about me? It's precisely this humility that qualifies you for such a calling. It's those who consider themselves complete, who think they already know everything, who remain deaf to deeper callings. Your ability to question, to doubt, paradoxically, is the same quality that allows you to be open to higher truths. There is a person who will enter your house and take everything, but not as you imagine. This isn't about a common thief who comes to steal your material possessions. This is a divine warning about something much deeper. This person is transformation, rebirth, complete renewal that comes to remove everything that has imprisoned you. The bonds of the past, paralyzing fears, doubts that corrode your faith, toxic relationships, destructive habits. All of this will be removed from your life. This person who will enter your house is divine power manifested, coming to clean your inner temple and prepare you for the abundant blessings waiting for you. Think for a moment about stories of ordinary people who, when touched by the extraordinary, became instruments of transformation in their time. Moses was just a shepherd when he encountered the burning bush. David was the smallest of his brothers, tending the flock when he was anointed king. Mary was a simple young woman from Nazareth when she received the angel's visit. In each story, the divine call came as a disruption of daily life, as a sacred invasion of routine. Just as spring doesn't ask winter's permission to bloom, this transformation has already begun to work in your life, even if you don't yet notice the signs. The seeds of change have already been planted in fertile soil, and the divine gardener is just waiting for the exact moment for the harvest to be abundant. In nature, each seed contains within itself all the potential of the tree it will one day become. In that seemingly insignificant small grain, the height it will reach, the fruits it will produce, the shade it will offer are already encoded. Similarly, in you, all the potential you're destined to manifest already exists. This call is just the sun, water, and nutrients that will germinate what has always been there. Recognize the signs. That door that closed wasn't a defeat, but a redirection. That relationship that ended wasn't a loss, but a rescue. That job you didn't get wasn't a rejection, but a protection. The paths were being prepared for this moment, for this encounter, for this revelation. Look back for a moment and notice how every no you received Every obstacle you faced, every disappointment you experienced, now makes sense in the great puzzle of your story. There was no error in the plan. There was only preparation for this moment of awakening. The moments of solitude you faced weren't abandonment, but opportunities to develop a deeper relationship with yourself and with the divine. The tears shed weren't in vain, but watered the soil of your soul so new fruits could be born. The nights of insomnia and anguish were, in fact, birth contractions of a new being born in you. You're being called to awaken to a new reality where earthly limitations will no longer determine the size of your faith or the extent of your dreams. It's as if you're emerging from a long sleep, and your eyes, still adjusting to the brightness, begin to glimpse a horizon full of possibilities that have always been within your reach. This awakening is like someone who has lived their entire life in a dark cave, knowing only shadows and distorted reflections of reality, and who is suddenly brought into the sunlight. The initial discomfort of intense clarity soon gives way to admiration for the beauty and complexity of the real world, which infinitely surpasses the shadows to which you were accustomed. The approaching transformation will be like the mighty wind that clears the sky after a storm, powerful, inevitable, and purifying. You will feel its strength, but you shouldn't fear it, for it comes to renew, not to destroy, to rebuild, not to tear down. Just as the wind cannot be seen, only its effects are perceived. Trees bending, leaves dancing, dust dispersing. This transformative force will not be fully understood by your rational mind. Its effects, however, will be undeniable and visible to everyone around you. This person who will enter your house and take everything is the very spirit of renewal. It will remove the dust of disillusionment that has accumulated on the furniture of your faith. It will open the dusty windows of your soul so the light of hope can penetrate again. It will sweep the dark corners where insecurities reside and organize the messy rooms of your thoughts. Think of your life as a house that hasn't received a deep cleaning in years. The rooms that should be spaces of peace and rest have become depositories of painful memories, abandoned dreams, unfulfilled promises, drawers full of guilt, closets crammed with grudges, basements infested with fears. All of this will be cleaned, organized, purified. The waiting times are over. The days of silent preparation have ended. You are being positioned at the center of the divine stage, where your life will become a living testimony of the transformative power that operates in those who are willing to surrender control and trust in the greater plan. This positioning isn't to satisfy your ego or to exalt you above others. It's so your light can shine in such a way that it illuminates the path for many. It's so your story of transformation can inspire those who still walk in the shadows, lost and without hope. Feel the warmth of this prophetic call coursing through your veins like a river of sacred fire. Allow it to melt the invisible chains that have limited your advance and restricted your vision. This is the refining fire that separates the precious from the impure, leaving only what has eternal value. Just as fire purifies gold, removing impurities and leaving only the precious metal, this call will purify your essence, consuming everything that doesn't serve your true purpose. The process may be intense, but the result will be a life that more faithfully reflects the glory for which it was destined. Don't ignore this call as you have ignored previous signs. Don't file this message away as just another coincidence or casualty. Recognize the gravity of this moment and the urgency of this warning. The divine clock is marking a new time for your life, and every second is precious in this transition. This is not a time for procrastination or for waiting for a clearer sign. The sign is already before you, as clear as the midday sun. This is not a time to consult the opinion of people who are still trapped in the same level of limited consciousness from which you are being called to exit. This is a time for decision, for action, for deliberate movement toward the call. The people around you may not understand what is happening to you. They may find your new behavior, your new mentality, your new way of seeing the world strange. Don't worry about that. When the eagle decides to fly higher, it doesn't ask permission from the chickens in the henhouse. Those who live on the plain cannot understand the perspective of those on the mountaintop. Those who have never left the desert cannot imagine the vastness of the ocean. Those who have always lived in shadows fear the intensity of light. Your transformation will provoke misunderstanding, perhaps even rejection, but that's just a sign that you're truly advancing beyond the limits that confined your existence. Tamase, this divine alert is an expression of the unconditional love that the Creator feels for you. It's because you are valuable, because your mission is important, because your purpose is greater than you imagine, that this intervention is happening now. You have not been forgotten. You have not been abandoned. You have been chosen for a radical transformation. This love is not like human love, conditional and volatile. It's a love that transcends understanding, that persists beyond failures, that remains faithful even in the face of infidelity. It's a love that doesn't give up on you, even when you give up on yourself. It's a love that sees not only who you are today, but who you are destined to become. The person who will enter your house and take everything is the very spirit of wisdom and discernment, which will remove the blindfold from your eyes so you can see clearly the path ahead of you. It's time to wake up, it's time to rise up, it's time to embrace the purpose for which you were created. This call resonates not only in the corners of your conscious mind, but penetrates into the deepest layers of your being, where your true identity dwells. It's a call that transcends logic and reason, speaking directly to your spirit with a clarity that only the awakened can fully understand. If you believe this message is for you, write in the comments, "I receive this blessing." Now that you have been alerted, it's time to look within. To really look, not with physical eyes that only see the surface of things, but with the eyes of the soul that penetrate layers of self-deception and reveal hidden truths. This inner look is not a simple self-help exercise or a superficial psychological technique. It's a deep journey to the center of your being, a brave dive into the often turbulent waters of your true essence. It's an encounter, perhaps for the first time, with who you really are behind the masks and social roles. Who are you when no one is looking? Who are you beyond the roles you play, beyond the masks you wear to protect yourself from the world? These are not rhetorical questions. They are invitations to a journey of self-discovery that many fear to begin. How many layers of borrowed identity have you been wearing? The professional role you perform with competence but without passion. The social role you maintain to be accepted, but which doesn't reflect your real values. The family role you assumed by tradition, not by conscious choice. All these temporary identities have accumulated over the years, creating a character you call me, but which has little to do with your true essence. Are you living the purpose for which you were created? Let this question resonate in every corner of your being. Let it penetrate the layers of comfort and familiarity you've built around yourself. The truth is that many of us live borrowed lives, following paths traced by others, pursuing dreams that aren't ours, trying to fulfill others' expectations. It's like spending your entire life building a house on the wrong piece of land. No matter how beautiful or solid the structure is, if it's not in the designated place, there will never be that feeling of belonging, that peace that transcends understanding, that inner certainty of being exactly where you should be, doing exactly what you should do. Imagine yourself before a spiritual mirror that doesn't reflect your physical appearance but the condition of your soul. What would you see? Would you see a fulfilled person living in the totality of their potential, or would you see someone trapped in a cycle of survival, just existing, but not truly living? This mirror doesn't lie or distort. It reveals with relentless precision the areas of your life where compromises were made with mediocrity, where talents were buried by fear, where calls were ignored by complacency. It's not a pleasant reflection to contemplate, but it's necessary for authentic awakening. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who comes from outside, but the one you harbor within. The fear of the unknown, the comfort of mediocrity, the resistance to change. These are the true invaders who silently enter your spiritual house and steal your most precious treasures, your dreams, your peace, your joy, your purpose. These internal enemies are particularly dangerous because they use your own voice. They don't appear as obvious adversaries, but as well-intentioned advisors, as voices of sensibility and realism. They disguise fear as wisdom, laziness as prudence, mediocrity as humility. What has been preventing you from moving forward? Is it the fear of failure that constantly whispers that you are not capable? Is it the fear of success that insinuates that you don't deserve to reach great heights? Or perhaps it's the voice of comparison, always reminding you that others seem to be more advanced, more blessed, more favored than you. These fears are not random. They are like sentinels strategically positioned around your destiny, guarding the gates that lead to the territory of your purpose. The more significant your mission, the more formidable these guardians of fear. They are proportional to the size of your calling. These voices are not yours. They don't belong to your true self. They are invaders who entered the house of your mind and established residence without being invited. And now the time has come to expel them. It won't be an easy or quick battle. These invaders have built fortresses over the years. They've established routines and thought patterns that seem natural, as if they were part of you. The first step to expel them is to recognize that they are unwanted visitors, not legitimate residents. The second step is to refuse to feed them with your attention and energy. The person who will enter your house and take everything is, in fact, your true self awakening from the sleep of limited consciousness. It's your spirit finally recognizing its intrinsic value and reclaiming the territory that had been occupied by thoughts and beliefs that don't serve your growth. This awakening is like the return of a legitimate king to a kingdom that was usurped. With uncontested authority, he removes the impostors from the throne, re-establishes order according to the original laws, and initiates a period of restoration and prosperity for the entire land. Your true self is returning to the throne of your consciousness, ready to govern with wisdom and purpose. You were created for much more than surviving from weekend to weekend, from vacation to vacation, from one small moment of happiness to another. You were conceived to prosper in all areas of your existence, to experience an abundant life that overflows with meaning and purpose. Think of the difference between a half-empty glass and a continuously flowing fountain. One represents scarcity, the other, abundance. One represents limitation, the other infinity. One represents survival, the other prosperity. You weren't designed to be a static container with limited resources, but a dynamic fountain connected to an infinite supply. But this abundance cannot coexist with the scarcity you have allowed to inhabit your interior. Just as you cannot fill a cup that is already full, you cannot receive new blessings when you're clinging to old patterns, old wounds, old mentalities. It's like trying to put on new clothes without removing the old ones. It's like trying to plant a garden without first preparing the soil. It's like trying to build a building without first establishing a solid foundation. Removal precedes filling. Death precedes resurrection. The end precedes the new beginning. Look at your life as if it were a house with many rooms. In which of them have you allowed disorder to accumulate? Which doors do you keep locked for fear of what you might find on the other side? Which windows remain closed, preventing the light of truth from illuminating the dark corners of your existence? Some rooms may have been locked for so long that you've already forgotten what's inside them. Perhaps they contain painful childhood memories, unprocessed traumas, abandoned dreams, undeveloped talents, ignored callings. The person who will enter your house and take everything will open these locked doors, not to torture you with the past, but to free you from the prisons you've built for yourself. It's time for a deep spiritual cleaning, to open every door, to face every fear, to examine every limiting belief that has directed your choices. This process may be uncomfortable, even painful, but growth rarely happens in comfort zones. Consider the caterpillar that transforms into a butterfly. The process of metamorphosis is nothing less than a complete dissolution of the previous being. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar doesn't simply grow wings, it literally dissolves into a soup of cells from which an entirely new being is formed. If the caterpillar could think, it would certainly consider this process terrifying, certain death. However, it's precisely this seemingly destructive dissolution that enables the creation of something much more beautiful and free. The transformation that approaches you won't be gentle like a summer breeze. It will be powerful like a gale that uproots trees, not because it aims to destroy, but because it needs to remove fragile structures so that more solid foundations can be established. Sometimes a building is so compromised in its foundations that superficial repairs are useless. It needs to be demolished to be rebuilt. Similarly, certain aspects of your life may need to be completely redesigned, not just reformed. Certain relationships may need to end, not just be modified. Certain beliefs may need to be abandoned, not just adjusted. Think about the most transformative moments of your life. Weren't they preceded by periods of intense questioning, deep reformulation, sometimes even crisis? The diamond isn't formed without pressure. The butterfly doesn't emerge without the struggle to break the cocoon. Gold isn't purified without passing through fire. These aren't empty metaphors or motivational cliches. They are fundamental principles that govern all processes of genuine transformation. Resistance strengthens muscles. Questioning deepens understanding. Discomfort motivates change. Adversity reveals character. Loss teaches value. The person who will enter your house and take everything isn't a thief who comes to steal your possessions. It's a refiner who comes to separate gold from impurities, to remove what is temporary and leave only what has eternal value. This refiner doesn't act with malice or indifference. He knows exactly the temperature needed to purify without destroying. He knows precisely how long the metal should remain in the fire. He watches the process attentively, never abandoning his precious creation to chance or destruction. Have you been clinging to relationships that drained your energy instead of multiplying it? Have you been holding on to habits that diminished your light instead of intensifying it? Have you been feeding thoughts that built walls instead of bridges? If so, prepare to see them being removed from your life. Not as punishment, but out of love. Not as rejection, but as protection. Not to impoverish your experience, but to enrich it with everything you truly deserve. The gardener who loves his plants doesn't hesitate to prune unproductive branches. The father who loves his children doesn't avoid the discipline necessary to form character. The doctor who cares about his patients doesn't retreat from the need for painful procedures if they lead to healing. You are like a tree that, to grow strong and produce abundant fruit, needs to be pruned. The dry branches, the yellowed leaves, everything that doesn't contribute to your growth needs to be cut so new shoots can emerge. This pruning isn't an act of cruelty, but of deep care. It's not an attempt to diminish you, but to allow your vital energy to be directed to where it can produce life in abundance. The same sap that fed dead branches will now nourish new growth full of potential. This inner awakening is the beginning of a journey to recover your spiritual authority, to recognize that you're not a victim of circumstances, but an architect of your destiny, that you're not at the mercy of life's tides, but possess the power to consciously navigate toward your purpose. This authority isn't about controlling others or manipulating external circumstances. It's about taking responsibility for your own life, for your choices, for your thoughts, for your emotions. It's about recognizing that, although you can't control everything that happens to you, you can always control how you respond to what happens. How many treasures have you failed to receive because you didn't recognize your worth? How many doors remained closed because you didn't have the courage to knock? How many gifts remained dormant because you feared the weight of responsibility they would bring? These aren't opportunities lost forever. They are dormant seeds waiting for ideal conditions to germinate. They are latent potentials waiting for the right moment to manifest. They are promises suspended in time, ready to materialize when you're prepared to receive them. The true battle isn't fought in the external fields of your reality, but in the internal territories of your being. It's there that the most significant victories are conquered. It's there that the most painful defeats are experienced. The visible kingdoms are just reflections of conquests or failures in invisible realms. External circumstances are material manifestations of spiritual conditions. What you see is a result of who you are. What you experience externally is a consequence of what you cultivate internally. The divine alert that now resonates is a call to take a stand in this inner battle, to decide once and for all who will govern the house of your life, whether it will be fears, insecurities, and limitations, or whether it will be the full consciousness of your divine potential. This isn't a battle you can outsource or delegate. There are no substitutes in this spiritual war. There are no representatives who can fight in your place. It's you, in your unique individuality, confronting the forces that have limited your evolution and prevented the manifestation of your purpose. The choice has always been and will always be yours. But know that this moment represents a turning point, a spiritual crossroads, where your decision will have repercussions not only for your immediate future, but for generations that will come after you. What you choose today determines not only what you will be tomorrow, but establishes a precedent, opens a path, creates a vibrational frequency that will affect all those who cross your orbit of influence. Your liberation isn't just for you, but for all who were designated to receive something through you. If you've gone through difficulties but never lost faith, comment, "I am strong and I will overcome." Now that the awakening has begun, prepare for the confrontation. For every great transformation is preceded by a period of testing. Every spiritual advance is contested by forces that prefer you to remain stagnant. Every new territory needs to be conquered. History is filled with examples that confirm this incontrovertible truth. There is no growth without resistance, no advance without opposition, no victory without battle. This isn't an arbitrary law or cosmic punishment. It's a fundamental principle that governs all processes of true evolution. The person who will enter your house and take everything is already knocking at your door. They're ready to remove every obstacle, every barrier, every chain that has limited your evolution. But before this purification happens, you will be tested, not to be destroyed, but to be approved. These tests aren't designed to make you fail, but to prepare you for the next level. They're like the exams a student needs to pass before advancing to a higher grade. They're like the intense training an athlete must go through before the main competition. They're like the rigorous rehearsals a musician must endure before the grand performance. Remember Joseph, sold as a slave by his own brothers, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years it seemed his life was ruined, that his dreams had been buried. But these moments weren't destruction, they were preparation. Each trial was shaping his character, refining his faith, preparing him for the moment when he would become governor of Egypt and save entire nations from famine. Joseph couldn't have wisely administered the abundant years of harvest and the devastating years of famine without first learning humility as a slave and patience as a prisoner. The palace would have corrupted his character if he hadn't first experienced the pit and the prison. Authority would have inflated his ego if he hadn't first experienced rejection and injustice. Power would have become poison in his hands if he hadn't first tasted the bitter cup of betrayal and abandonment. Or think of David, anointed king while still young but forced to flee and hide in caves for years, pursued by King Saul who tried to kill him. Those years weren't abandonment, they were training. Each day in the mountains, each night in the caves was preparing him to lead a nation with wisdom and justice. David couldn't have governed Israel with an upright heart if he hadn't first learned to trust in the Lord while fleeing for his life. He couldn't have managed the complexities of a kingdom if he hadn't first managed the dynamics of his small band of followers in the caves of Adullam. He couldn't have conquered neighboring nations if he hadn't first defeated the internal giants of loneliness, rejection, and despair. The years in the caves weren't an interruption of David's destiny. They were a crucial part of it. They weren't a detour from the path, but the very path to the palace. They weren't an error in the divine plan, but an essential stage of that plan. The same is true for you. What seems to be a waiting station may be, in fact, an intensive preparation station for the role you're destined to play. And we can't forget Esther, an ordinary young woman who became queen and had to face the fear of death to save her people. Her uncle Mordecai told her words that still resonate today. Who knows if you haven't come to royal position for such a time as this? Esther wasn't born in the palace. She wasn't prepared from childhood to be queen. She was a foreigner, an exile, someone who, by all logical standards, should have remained invisible on the margins of society. Yet seemingly random circumstances placed her in a position of unprecedented influence, precisely at the moment when her people faced their greatest threat. The same can be said to you today. Who knows if it wasn't for this exact moment that you went through everything you've gone through? If every difficulty, every disappointment, every obstacle wasn't actually preparing you for this decisive hour. You're not where you are by accident. You didn't develop the talents you possess by coincidence. You didn't go through the trials you faced without purpose. Everything in your journey has converged for this moment of awakening and transformation, for this hour when you finally recognize and embrace the divine call on your life. The battle you now face isn't against flesh and blood. It's not against people, no matter how much it sometimes seems to be. It's against limiting mentalities, against distorted perceptions, against internal strongholds that have prevented you from advancing to your promised land. These strongholds weren't built in a day. They're the result of years, perhaps decades, of repetitive thoughts, of ingrained beliefs, of untreated wounds that became infected and formed dysfunctional layers of protection. Complete systems of thought were erected on false foundations, creating veritable citadels of resistance to your growth and evolution. When the Israelites were about to enter Canaan, they sent spies to reconnoiter the land. 10 returned terrified, speaking of giants and fortified cities. Only 2, Joshua and Caleb, saw beyond the obstacles and recognized the promise. They said, "If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us." The same land produced 2 completely different reports. The same facts generated 2 opposite interpretations. The same objective reality resulted in 2 distinct subjective responses. What made the difference wasn't the giants who inhabited the land. All the spies saw them. What made the difference was the lens through which each group chose to interpret what they saw. What kind of spies have you been sending to reconnoiter your future? The spies of fear who only see problems, or the spies of faith who see opportunities where others see obstacles? The spies of fear are well known. What if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if I'm not capable? What if others laugh at me? What if it's too difficult? They always return with pessimistic reports, emphasizing everything that can go wrong, all the difficulties, all the potential dangers. The spies of faith, on the other hand, bring a different perspective. What if I succeed? What if it's easier than it seems? What if this is the opportunity I've always waited for? What if all this preparation was exactly for this moment? They don't ignore the challenges, but they see them in the broader context of divine promise and purpose. The battle that now unfolds is above all a battle for your mind. For who will control your thoughts, your feelings, your decisions? It's a battle to determine whether you'll live based on the limited reality that your physical eyes can see, or on the expanded reality that your spiritual eyes can perceive. Your thoughts aren't random or insignificant events. They're powerful seeds that, when watered by your attention and emotion, grow and produce corresponding fruits in your outer life. They're like programs that define the parameters within which your life experience operates. They're like lenses that determine not only what you see, but how you interpret what you see. You're not alone in this battle, you never were. Just as Elisha asked for his servant's eyes to be opened to see the chariots of fire surrounding them, invisible but real protection, ask now for your eyes to be opened to recognize the divine resources at your disposal. Elisha's servant saw only the enemy army, numerous and threatening, surrounding the city. His perception, limited to physical reality, led him to panic and despair. But when his spiritual eyes were opened, he saw that they were surrounded not just by an earthly army, but by a much more powerful celestial army. Reality hadn't changed, only his perception of it. Similarly, the circumstances of your life may seem overwhelming when viewed only through the lenses of human logic and visible resources. But when your spiritual eyes are opened, you realize that you were never alone on this journey, never abandoned to your own luck, never left to face your giants with only your limited strength. The person who will enter your house and take everything is the very process of refinement that will test every structure, every foundation, every pillar of your life. What is built on sand will be washed away by the storm. What is built on rock will remain unshakable. This refinement process isn't arbitrary or indiscriminate. It's surgical in its precision, removing only what needs to be removed, testing only what needs to be tested, strengthening exactly what needs to be strengthened. There's no waste in this process, no superfluous movements, no misdirected energy. This is a time to take a stand, to declare like Joshua, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." To affirm like Paul, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." To proclaim like David, "Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear." These aren't empty declarations or motivational mantras. They're affirmations of reality, proclamations of truth, acts of alignment with a higher order that transcends temporary appearances. They're spiritual postures that determine the territory you'll occupy, the battles you'll win, the legacy you'll leave. You were prepared for this moment. Every tear you shed, every sleepless night, every seemingly unanswered prayer, everything was weaving in you the strength necessary to face this test and emerge victorious. Just as iron is forged in fire, your character was molded in the flames of adversity. Just as the athlete develops strength through resistance, your resilience was built through the weights of difficulty. Just as gold is purified by intense heat, your faith was refined in the elevated temperatures of suffering. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, it wasn't to be devoured, but to demonstrate that not even the most fearsome beasts could touch one who was protected by divine power. His trial wasn't his end, it was his platform, a stage where supernatural power would be manifested in such an evident way that even his enemies would have to recognize it. Daniel didn't go to the lion's den by chance or carelessness. It was because his faithfulness bothered those who operated in corrupt systems. It was because his integrity exposed the dishonesty of those around him. It was because his light revealed the darkness that others preferred to keep hidden. His trial wasn't an accident. It was a direct consequence of his decision to live aligned with higher principles, even when it meant swimming against the current. Your life is becoming that stage now. The test you face isn't your end, it's your platform. A scenario where your faith will be vindicated in such an impressive way that even those who doubted will have to recognize that something extraordinary is happening to you. This vindication won't serve to inflate your ego or to allow you to point accusatory fingers at those who doubted. It will serve as a living testimony of the transformative power that operates in those who remain faithful to their calling, even when everything seems to indicate they should give up. The truth is that some bonds need to be broken for you to advance. Some people need to leave your life so others can enter. Some doors need to close so new ones can open. This process can be painful, but it's necessary, and above all, it's loving. It's no different from a gardener pruning a fruit tree. To untrained eyes, pruning may seem like an act of cruelty, removing branches, cutting seemingly healthy parts, leaving the tree temporarily with less foliage. But the experienced gardener knows that this seemingly destructive process is essential for the health and productivity of the plant. It will produce more fruit, larger and healthier fruit, precisely because of the strategic cuts it endured. The pain you feel during pruning isn't the pain of rejection, it's the pain of growth. It isn't the pain of abandonment, it's the pain of preparation. It isn't the pain of destruction, it's the pain of reconstruction. This pain has purpose, direction, meaning. It isn't empty suffering or arbitrary punishment, it's like labor pain. Intense but productive, temporary, but with eternal results. Difficult but completely forgotten when the new being finally arrives in the world. When the goldsmith places gold in the fire, it isn't to destroy it, but to purify it. He knows exactly how long the metal needs to stay in the crucible, not a second more, not a second less. And how does he know when the process is complete? When he can see his own reflection on the surface of the gold. The fire isn't arbitrary or vindictive. It isn't maintained for even a moment beyond what's necessary. Its intensity is carefully controlled, not to melt the gold until it disappears, but to remove precisely what prevents its full beauty and value from manifesting. The goldsmith never loses sight of the gold, never gets distracted from the process, never abandons his precious work to its own fate. Similarly, the trials you face have a precise purpose and limit. They won't last a day longer than necessary, and the final result will be a life that more clearly reflects the divine image for which it was created. The person who will enter your house and take everything is, in fact, the divine hand removing everything that has blocked your channels of blessing. It's like a skilled surgeon removing a tumor so the body can be restored to full health. This spiritual surgery isn't performed blindly or by trial and error. It's guided by a wisdom that knows every cell of your being, every tendency of your personality, every latent potential of your essence. There are no unnecessary cuts, no excessive removals, no collateral damage that isn't compensated for by the restoration that follows. This is the moment to assume your position in the battle, to put on the full armor, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, not to fight against people, but to dismantle thought systems that have kept you in a cycle of limitation. This armor isn't a set of disconnected pieces, but an integrated system of protection. The belt of truth keeps everything in place, ensuring that you're grounded in reality as it truly is, not as it appears to be. The breastplate of righteousness protects your heart, keeping it aligned with right principles, even when the world around operates according to other values. The shield of faith extinguishes the flaming darts of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. The helmet of salvation protects your mind, keeping it focused on who you really are, not on what others say you are. And the sword of the Spirit, the only offensive piece of this set, allows you to cut through the illusions and lies that have impeded your progress. Armed in this way, you won't fight against people of flesh and blood, but against the mental and spiritual strongholds that have dominated not only your life, but entire generations. You'll be confronting not just your personal limitations, but entire systems of thought that have kept many prisoners of unrealized potentials. Declare now with faith, "My blessing has already arrived." Feel the wind changing direction. Notice the atmosphere transforming around you. Something is happening right now as you receive this message. A change is underway, silent but powerful, invisible but undeniable. This isn't a superficial or temporary change, like waves on the surface of the ocean that appear for a moment and soon disappear. It's a deep and lasting change, like underwater currents that, although invisible to those observing from the beach, have the power to alter the composition of the ocean floor and influence the weather patterns of entire continents. The person who will enter your house and take everything has already begun their transformative work, and it's no longer a future event. It's a present reality. The chains are breaking, the walls are crumbling, the paths are opening. Just as dawn doesn't happen suddenly, but gradually dissipates darkness until complete night gives way to full day. This transformation isn't an isolated moment, but a continuous process that's already underway. Each passing minute, the shadows lose a bit more of their domain and clarity advances inexorably. Can you feel it? That growing lightness, as if weights you've carried for so long are being removed from your shoulders? That mental clarity that emerges when mists of confusion are dissipated. That courage that springs forth when fear is replaced by the certainty of purpose. These are subtle signs, perhaps, but unmistakable to those who are attentive. Like the first green shoots that emerge after a long winter, announcing that spring, although not yet fully visible, is already operating its silent transformation underground, preparing an explosion of life and color. Your spirit is strengthening. Your faith is gaining new life. Your hope is being revived like embers under ashes that receive a breath of fresh air and transform into vigorous flames. This strengthening isn't the result of self-help techniques or superficial positive thinking. It's the organic awakening of your true nature, the blossoming of what has always been planted in your core, just waiting for the propitious conditions to manifest in all its glory. This transformation isn't a process you need to initiate. It's a process that's already underway, and to which you need only surrender. Like a sailboat that adjusts its sails to catch the wind, you need only align your will with this transformative force that's already operating in your life. The wind of the Spirit is blowing. You can't control it or direct it, but you can position the sails of your consciousness to be propelled by it. You don't create the wind, but you can create an internal environment that's receptive to its transformative influence. You don't determine the direction of the current, but you can choose to swim with it instead of against it. Think of the cocoon that breaks to give passage to the butterfly. The process is inevitable and irreversible. Once metamorphosis begins, there's no going back to being a caterpillar. Similarly, the transformation that began in you can't be reversed. You can't go back to being who you were before this encounter, before this revelation, before this awakening. It's not just about external changes or superficial improvements. It's a true metamorphosis, a process by which your fundamental identity is being rewritten, recreated, resignified. Just as the caterpillar and butterfly share the same DNA, but represent completely different stages of existence, you're still fundamentally yourself, but a transcendent version of what you were before. You're being empowered now, not with an egocentric power that seeks to control and manipulate others, but with an authentic power that flows from inside out and transforms realities without violence, without coercion, just by the force of your example and your presence. This power doesn't come from titles, positions, or external recognition. It doesn't depend on applause, validations, or approvals. It's an intrinsic authority that emanates from your connection to something greater than yourself, a vital force that transcends personal limitations and operates according to universal principles. The person who will enter your house and take everything is removing limitations you didn't even know you had. Like a bird that has lived so long in a cage that it stopped noticing the bars, you've become accustomed to certain restrictions, certain impossibilities, certain "I can't" and "I'm unable." That seemed a natural part of your reality. These invisible bars have been more effective in limiting your flight than any external obstacle. They're mental constructions that, because they've been internalized, no longer need external enforcement. You yourself have become your own jailer, policing the limits of what you believe is possible, acceptable, or achievable for someone like you. Those bars are being removed now, and the vast expanse of sky is revealing itself as your true habitat. You weren't created to live confined, limited, restricted. You were created to fly high, to expand horizons, to explore territories that others consider inaccessible. Observe how an eagle raised in captivity initially hesitates to fully use its wings, even when the cage door is opened. Its muscles, atrophied from disuse, need time to regain the strength necessary for the majestic flight that is its birthright. Similarly, you may find initial resistance in yourself when fully embracing this new freedom. Your spiritual muscles have been conditioned by years of self-imposed limitation. Be patient with yourself as you relearn to fly. Visualize this transformation as a powerful wave sweeping through your life from one end to the other. But unlike sea waves that can destroy what they find in their path, this is a wave of restoration. It doesn't drag away what's valuable, only removes the debris, the dirt, the rubble that obstructed your path. This wave distinguishes with perfect precision between what should remain and what should be removed. Like a divine washing, it carries away only what contaminates, what corrupts, what weakens, leaving behind what is pure, what is true, what is authentic. Your relationships are being transformed. People who didn't add value to your life are naturally moving away, while meaningful and nurturing connections are being strengthened or established. It's as if an invisible magnet was attracting to your orbit exactly the people who complement your purpose and repelling those who divert you from it. This relational reordering won't require dramatic confrontations or painful breakups, although in some cases this may happen. Most of the time it will be an organic and natural process, like water finding its level, like planets adjusting in their orbits, like musical notes finding the right harmony. Your mind is being transformed. Limiting thoughts that for years dominated your mental processes are losing strength, while expansive perspectives begin to create new neural pathways. It's as if an obsolete program was being uninstalled from the computer of your mind to make way for more advanced and efficient software. Neuroscientists talk about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize its connections, create new neural pathways, and abandon old ones. This isn't just a scientific theory, but a spiritual reality. Your mind is literally being renewed, recreating thought patterns that are more aligned with your true purpose and potential. Your heart is being transformed. Emotional wounds that seemed incurable are healing. Grudges you believed you would carry forever are being dissolved. It's as if a divine balm was being applied to the most painful areas of your soul, bringing relief where before there was only pain. This healing process isn't superficial or temporary. It isn't like a painkiller that merely masks symptoms while the underlying cause remains unchanged. It's a deep healing that begins at the root of trauma, reorganizing memories, resignifying experiences, restoring what was broken, filling what was emptied. Your financial situation is being transformed. Blockages in your relationship with money and prosperity are being removed. Doors of provision that seemed closed are beginning to open. It's as if obstructed channels were being cleared, so resources can flow freely in your direction. Authentic prosperity isn't just having more. It's being able to receive more. It's removing the internal blockages that prevent your natural alignment with abundance. It's correcting distorted beliefs about money, wealth, and material success that programmed you to sabotage your own access to prosperity. This transformation isn't a one-time event, but a continuous process. Like concentric waves that form when a stone is thrown into a lake, the effects of this change will continue to expand into areas of your life that you don't even imagine yet. The central stone has been thrown, the decision to embrace this call, to allow this transformative process. But the effects of that decision won't be limited to your spiritual or emotional life. They'll reach every aspect of your existence. Your relationships, your career, your health, your creativity, your community, your legacy. Nothing will remain untouched. The person who will enter your house and take everything is the very renewing force of life, removing obsolete structures so new ones can be built. It's like a gardener who not only pulls weeds, but also turns the soil, fertilizes it, and plants new seeds. This renewal isn't partial or selective. Just as an old house needs more than just a fresh coat of paint, perhaps the electrical wiring needs to be redone, the plumbing replaced, the foundation reinforced. Your life is receiving a complete restoration, reaching fundamental systems that perhaps you didn't even realize needed updating. This is the moment to consciously cooperate with this process, to not resist what needs to be removed, even if it seems valuable in your eyes, to not cling to what's being taken away, even if it seems essential for your security. Trust that what comes to replace it will be infinitely better, more aligned with your true purpose, more conducive to your full realization. Conscious cooperation doesn't mean passivity or blind surrender. It means active and intentional participation in a process you didn't initiate, but of which you can become a collaborator. Like a dancer who didn't choose the music, but can choose how to move in harmony with it, creating beauty from what was given. You're in the eye of the transformative hurricane, at the epicenter of the renewing earthquake, in the heart of the purifying storm, and paradoxically, it's the safest place to be. In the eye of the hurricane, there's a surprising calm. At the epicenter of the earthquake, there's an unexpected stability. In the heart of the storm, there's an incomprehensible peace. Not because the intensity is less there, but because you're completely aligned with the forces of transformation, moving with them instead of against them. This transformation isn't random or chaotic. It's precise like a skillfully executed surgery. It's specific like a carefully formulated prescription. It's intentional like a meticulously elaborated project. Each area of your life that's being touched by this transformation was selected with purpose. Each aspect of your being that's being reformulated was chosen with intention. Each thought system that's being challenged was identified with precision. Nothing is by chance, nothing is superfluous, nothing is dispensable in this process. If you feel your change has begun now, comment, "I am ready to live the new." We've reached the end of this journey of revelation, transformation, and commitment. But remember, what seems to be an end is, in fact, just the beginning of a new phase. What appears to be a conclusion is, in essence, the prelude to a new symphony. What presents itself as the ending of a chapter is, in reality, the first letter of a new volume in the grand narrative of your life. The person who entered your house and took everything has concluded their initial work of preparation and renewal. Like an artist who finishes the meticulous work of restoring a masterpiece, removing layers of dust, repairing damaged areas, enhancing original colors that had faded with time, your true being now shines with the authentic beauty for which it was created. This conclusion isn't a farewell, but a transition. It isn't a goodbye, but a see you soon. It isn't the end of a relationship, but its evolution to a new level of intimacy, collaboration, and shared purpose. The same presence that operated, this profound transformation will continue to accompany you, guiding each step, illuminating each choice, strengthening each effort. Looking back, you can now recognize the divine precision in each stage of the process. Like a skilled tapestry weaver, who from his privileged side sees the complete pattern, while the worker, seeing only the back of the work, sees only knots and seemingly disconnected threads. Now you begin to glimpse the beauty of the design that was being woven, even in the most confusing and painful moments of your journey. The person who entered your house and took everything didn't operate randomly, but with strategic purpose in each removal, in each replacement, in each renewal. Like a surgeon who doesn't cut out of cruelty, but out of curative necessity, each intervention in your life, and even the most painful ones, served a greater purpose of restoration, realignment, and revitalization. This conclusion is a moment for celebration and gratitude, for solemn recognition of the magnitude of what has been accomplished in you and through you, for conscious appreciation of the distance traveled since this process began, from initial doubts to present certainty, from paralyzing fear to activating courage, from disorienting confusion to directing clarity. Celebrate not as one who has reached the final destination, but as a traveler who has reached a significant peak and pauses to appreciate the view, recognizing both the territory already traversed and the horizons that still extend ahead. This celebration isn't an invitation to complacency, but fuel to renew strength before continuing the ascent. The person who entered your house and took everything has established in you a new baseline, a new starting point, a new normal. Like when NASA recalibrates its navigation instruments, establishing an updated reference from which all future measurements will be made. Your perception of reality has been realigned with a higher truth that will now serve as the foundation for every thought, decision, and action. This conclusion is also a moment for consolidation and integration, to allow the profound changes that have occurred to be completely absorbed in all dimensions of your being, to give time for your body, mind, emotions, and relationships to adjust to the new vibrational frequency in which you now operate. The transformation was radical, and full integration requires time, conscious attention, and gentleness with yourself. Just as a mountain climber needs to acclimatize to each new level of altitude to allow his body to adapt to different conditions, you need to give yourself space to acclimatize to this new level of consciousness, capability, and responsibility. It's not a sign of weakness or failure. It's wisdom that recognizes the depth of the metamorphosis you've undergone. The person who entered your house and took everything has established in you a new identity that now needs to be fully inhabited. Like someone who moves into a new house and takes time to familiarize themselves with each room, discover the purpose of each space, adjust the decoration to reflect their personality, you're in the process of familiarizing yourself with your new self, exploring newly discovered capabilities, testing expanded limits, expressing your authentic essence through newly liberated forms. This conclusion is still a moment of formal commissioning, like a ceremony where the craftsman, having completed the apprentice's training, now recognizes him as a master capable of practicing the craft on his own. You are being sent to apply everything you've learned, to implement everything you've received, to manifest everything you've become. This commissioning isn't a promotion based on merit, but a recognition of readiness based on verified transformation. It's not a prize for exceptional performance, but a confirmation of achieved alignment. It's not an elevation to the status of expert who has nothing more to learn, but an authorization to serve from what has already been integrated, while continuing to grow in wisdom and capability. The person who entered your house and took everything now commissions you as an ambassador of the same transformation you experienced, like someone who was healed from a serious illness and then dedicates themselves to bringing healing to others who still suffer. You are sent not as a theorist who merely talks about renewal, but as a living witness who embodies it. Your own transformed existence becomes tangible evidence of what is possible, palpable inspiration for those still struggling in the shadows you left behind. This conclusion is finally a moment of new beginning. Like the dawn that isn't the end of the night, but the beginning of the day. Like spring that isn't the termination of winter, but the prelude to summer. Like birth that isn't the conclusion of gestation, but the beginning of a lifetime. This moment marks not the finalization of a process, but the inauguration of a new era in your journey. This new beginning isn't a repetition of previous cycles, isn't a return to familiar patterns, isn't a relapse into old identities. It's genuinely new, based on different foundations, oriented by different values, motivated by different purposes, directed to different objectives. It's a true restart, but from a much higher level than where you were when this journey began. The person who entered your house and took everything prepared you for this new beginning. Like a rocket that needs to shed its initial stages to reach higher orbits, you needed to abandon weights, limitations, and old patterns to reach this new level. What was removed wasn't your essence, but what prevented your essence from being fully expressed. It wasn't your potential, but what blocked the complete manifestation of that potential. As we close this communication, remember that the words shared here aren't merely informative but transformative. They aren't just concepts to be intellectually understood, but living seeds planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness, destined to germinate and produce tangible fruits in every area of your life. These words will continue reverberating in your mind and spirit far beyond this moment, revealing deeper layers of meaning as you advance in your journey, offering new insights as you face new challenges, providing renewed guidance as you explore new territories. The person who entered your house and took everything has deposited in you not only revelations for the present, but also seeds for future revelations. Like a genetic code that contains instructions for the complete development of the organism, but which expresses itself in stages. At the appropriate time for each phase of growth, the truth implanted in you will continue unfolding, organically, revealing exactly what you need when you need it. Go forward now with unshakable confidence, not as one who walks unknown paths without map or compass, but as someone who has been equipped with precise internal navigation, capable of discerning the right direction, even when external signs are confusing or contradictory. Not as one who advances through hostile territories without protection, but as someone who has been clothed in an impenetrable armor that no weapon formed against you can penetrate. This confidence isn't based on naive optimism or superficial positive thinking. It's grounded in the concrete experience of the transformation that has already occurred, in the tangible evidence of what has already been accomplished in you and through you, in the verifiable certainty that the same power that initiated this work is perfectly capable of completing it. The person who entered your house and took everything now sends you as an authorized representative of a higher kingdom, as a credentialed ambassador of a transcendent reality, as a commissioned executor of a divine purpose. Go with the dignity of one who understands the magnitude of this designation. Walk with the humility of one who recognizes that they are an instrument, not a source. Serve with the generosity of one who knows that they received abundantly to be able to share liberally. In conclusion, allow these final words to be deeply engraved in your spirit. You were found. You were restored. You were prepared. You were positioned. You were equipped. You were sent. And now the world awaits the transformative impact of your surrendered life, your embraced purpose, your liberated potential, your realized destiny. The person who entered your house and took everything, the very spirit of renewal, wisdom, and power, remains with you, inside you, around you. Not as a supervisor who monitors your performance, but as a partner who celebrates your unique expression. Not as a judge who evaluates your failures, but as a helper who supplies your needs. Not as a dictator who imposes their will, but as a counselor who reveals higher possibilities. Go now and fully live the calling for which you were created. Manifest without reservation the purpose for which you were restored. Impact without limitations the spheres for which you were designated. Your hour has come. Your moment is now. Your time of full brilliance has begun. As the poet proclaimed, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." If these words deeply touched your spirit, declare with conviction, "I am ready for my new season.